They're called the Brotherhood. They have been our sworn enemies for as long as I can remember. Led by a madman who was once my closest friend. But now, a new evil has surfaced. One with powers beyond comprehension. And those we have battled against for so long will become something we never imagined. Our allies. The apocalypse has begun.
was sitting at my desk and I saw a fly crawling on the wall. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to have a superhero who could crawl on walls? And then I needed a name for him. So I thought, well, Fly Man? Nah, it didn't sound dramatic. Mosquito Man? Nah. Insect Man? Nah. Spider-Man? Ooh, Spider-Man. It sounded dramatic, it sounded scary, and that's how it happened. What is his normal identity going to be? What's his alter ego going to be? And I wanted to do something different. I figured I'll make him a teenager, but he won't be a teenage sidekick. He will be a teenage superhero. And I want him to have a lot of problems so that the average teenager reading the book could empathize with him, could figure, hey, I know how he feels, boy. I got the same problems. When you take away the spider powers and the crazy villains, he's probably the most realistic superhero of all. He's just a guy, with the problems you and I have. In the beginning, he was just another character I had made up, and I hoped that he would sell so that I could keep my job and be able to pay the rent. That was about as far as my thinking went. I think the main thing that makes Spider-Man so appealing as a video game character is the fact that he does things that no other character does. The fact, just the web swinging alone, what could be more exciting? The way Brian Michael Bendis is retelling the story of Spider-Man for the next generation is way cool. He's giving it a new twist. You're seeing Spider-Man in a different way, and yet he's keeping it true to the image of the real Spider-Man. It's the first time that a player can be the villain. And what a villain to play. Venom. I mean, Venom has to be the worst, the deadliest, the most evil, the most dangerous, and the most unique villain that Spider-Man or any hero has ever fought. I think if I were doing another villain for a Spider-Man game, what I would suggest is having a double villain, Kraven and Sandman. They're both totally different, and even Spider-Man would have a tough time beating them. But he'd have a tough time beating either one, but both of them, man, that would be fun. I think the idea of doing the Ultimate Spider-Man as though it's a living comic book is a great idea. That doesn't work if you're taking a badly done comic book. But when you take a comic book as good as the Ultimate Spider-Man and you put it into a game as good as what Activision is capable of doing, and you combine those two so that the player gets the feeling that he's not only playing a video game, but he's playing a comic book which has come to life. I mean, that's got to be incredibly exciting. I guess my similarities with Peter Parker are the fact that, like everybody else, I always have problems. Things never turn out perfectly for me. And as far as my similarity to Spider-Man, well, I guess the easiest way to put it, we are both wonderful human beings, very glamorous. Everybody loves us, and we're also, well, in this case, I'm probably a little crazier than Spider-Man. But seriously, Spider-Man is a great character. And as long as the people working on Spider-Man care as much about him as we do, and as long as the public still clamors for exciting, original entertainment, I think Spider-Man has a very long shelf life.
Hey, this is Brian Reed, lead designer for Ultimate Spider-Man at Treyarch. I'll be giving you the inside track on some exclusive tips and tricks, making you an expert in everything from combat strategies to crushing your toughest adversaries. Even though Spider-Man is a pretty able fighter, it's good to remember he has a few tricks up his sleeves that will help you take your fighting skills from merely amazing to ultimate. When facing an enemy, you can use your web shooter in combination with different attack buttons to perform some pretty fancy moves. Keep in mind that holding your web attack button will wrap an enemy in webbing. If you continue to hold the web attack button, you can tap, punch, kick, or grab to perform different special attacks. For example, hold down the web attack button, then press punch to reel in the bad guy and perform a two-fisted slam on his head. When you hold down the web attack button and press kick, you'll reel him in and then perform a jumping backflip kick, which kicks him way out in front of you. When holding down the web attack button, press grab. Spidey will zip towards the enemy and perform a forward flipping two-footed stomp. If there's a lamppost nearby, press the web attack button and then jump, and you'll leave the enemy hanging from the lamppost. This will take them out of the fight for a little while and let you concentrate on his friends. Finally, when you're holding down the web attack button, you can push the left analog stick the opposite direction of the bad guy to send them flying on a web line. Spider-Man will do a lot more damage if you switch between punches and kicks. If you just punch on a guy for a while, you're going to hurt him, but not as bad as you will if you go back and forth between the punches and kicks. Also, be sure to do what Spider-Man does. Bounce off walls. Push the left analog stick towards a wall, press punch or kick, and watch Spidey bounce around and do even more damage to bad guys than usual. Spider-Man also has different punches, kicks, and combos available to him while fighting. During combat, use nearby walls for some creative attacks. Pushing the left analog stick towards the wall, then pressing punch or kick buttons will activate those special moves. Spider-Man will jump and propel himself off the wall into nearby enemies. This is a great move, especially if you find yourself cornered. Venom can grab enemies by pressing, conveniently enough, the grab button. What he does next is entirely up to you. Press and hold the grab button to grab an enemy and follow it up by pressing the punch button. Venom will slam the enemy face down on the pavement as hard as he can. Press the punch button, followed by the grab button. Venom will grab an enemy and try to snap them like a twig. When a claw or tentacle attack just isn't enough to put your enemy down, well, Venom can throw cars. To use a car as a weapon, all you have to do is pick it up with the grab button. Venom will then toss the car with all of his strength. Pressing the grab button twice rapidly will make Venom perform a quick throw. Using the right analog stick, you can aim the direction you want Venom's car toss to go. This allows you to put the damage exactly where you want it. Once you master these moves, your enemies will truly fear you. When the battle begins, Rhino has made his way to a construction yard and is attempting to rip out a massive gas storage tank. Now this is bad news for all involved, so here's some tips to help Spider-Man save the day. Attack Rhino by jumping up and grabbing onto his back. Pounding on Rhino's armor will get the big guy's attention. Once Rhino is focused on Spidey, you can lead him over to the big patch of wet cement. When Rhino does his power punch and gets his hand stuck in the wet cement, it's time to activate the wrecking ball and send him flying. In the second half of this battle, Rhino will lead Spider-Man into a used car lot. The trick here is to focus your attacks on the broken panel in Rhino's back. Dodge Rhino's attacks until the electricity on his back has gone away, and then Spidey can grab on and pound away. Repeat this a few times and you'll win the battle with ease. Venom and Wolverine have a chance meeting when Venom unknowingly smashes up Wolverine's motorcycle. Wolverine's ready for revenge, but armed with the following tips, you can even the playing field. Wolverine is a devastating fighter at close range, so whenever possible, try to keep him at a distance by using Venom's tentacle attacks. There are a few gang members that Venom can feed on for energy, so be sure to fill up before the fight spills over into the dojo. Wolverine will attempt to jump over Venom and attack from behind, but a good tentacle swipe will stop him in his tracks and put you in a position to finish him off. Green Goblin is loose on the streets of Manhattan, and it's up to Spidey to save the day. Keep up with Goblin as he leads you through the streets, and be sure to use web zip in the areas where there are no buildings to swing from, or you'll definitely fall behind. During the chase, Goblin will attack a large billboard and bring it crashing down on some civilians. Be sure to avoid Goblin's fireballs before attempting to lift the rubble. Eventually, Goblin will turn on Spider-Man and the fight is on. Goblin is invincible when he's covered in flames, so dodges fireball attacks and wait for him to tire out. When his flames turn off, that's your chance to land a few good hits. The fight will eventually lead indoors. At this point, Goblin will begin to use Pyroblast to beat Spider-Man. Be sure to use your web and swing out of the way to avoid the fire. Electro is helping Trask Industries test the Venom suit. As the battle leads into Times Square, Spider-Man enters the mix, but a lucky blow by Electro knocks him out. Both villains want a piece of your friendly neighborhood superhero, but who will win? At the beginning of the battle, Electro is vulnerable to Venom's melee attacks, but you need to get away before he charges up, or you'll suffer the consequences. Once Electro is low on health, he'll power himself up on one of the jumbo signs in Times Square. Electro is now pure energy, so going toe-to-toe with him is no longer an option. Venom can smash the fire hydrants around Times Square and release a torrent of water to knock Electro out of the air. Once Electro is on the ground and back in human form, get in there and do some damage. Another great way to get Electro is to quickly throw cars at him and knock him out of the air. The most reliable way to do this is to grab a car and then rapidly press the grab button again to make Venom throw it as fast as possible. Remember to keep the Venom suit fed, but whatever you do, don't feed on Electro. That will result in nothing but pain. Instead, chase down one of the tasty morsels, civilians running around Times Square. Electro will use the signs around Times Square for extra energy if he runs low. You can pull the plug on this by attacking the signs before Electro uses them to power up. So there you have it. I've given you everything you need to know to master the game, so now get out there and have fun.
He's a different kind of hero.
There's something about a guy who's swinging across town on a spider web.
The idea of a superhero with everyday problems is revolutionary today as it was when he came up with it.
My publisher, Martin Goodman, he hated everything about it. He wouldn't let me publish it.
It totally revolutionized the comic book industry.
Who fights crime in a very special city.
What we really wanted to do was bring you Spider-Man's New York.
His name is Spider-Man. And when Activision and Treyarch set out to make the biggest Spider-Man game of all time,
by the time this game is done, well over 100 people will have had their hands on this project.
We have more supervillains and superheroes than any previous Spider-Man game.
the results are spectacular. This is the making of Ultimate Spider-Man. It's the early 1960s, and Marvel Comics wants Stan Lee to create a new superhero.
Well, I had been doing comics for so long, came up with the Fantastic Four, then I did the Hulk, and they were both very successful, so my publisher, Martin Goodman, he said, hey, come up with another superhero. So I thought of Spider-Man, and I told him about it, and man, he hated it. He said, Stan, people hate spiders. That's no name for a hero. Then when I told him I wanted him to be a teenager, he said, don't you know anything about what a superhero should be? He hated everything about it. He wouldn't let me publish it.
But Lee decides to go ahead with his story about a teenager named Peter Parker who gains amazing powers after being bitten by a radioactive spider.
We had a magazine called Amazing Fantasy, and we were going to drop it. When you're about to drop a magazine, nobody cares what you put in the last issue. So I featured Spider-Man on the cover and had a story of Spider-Man. Well, when the sales figures came in, that had been our best-selling magazine of the whole year. So Martin walked into me. He said, you know, Stan, do you remember that Spider-Man character of yours that we both liked so much? Why don't you make it a series? That's how it happened.
In 1963, the web-crawling hero gets his own comic book.
Spider-Man proved to be a very popular character in the 1960s. He had his own book, which was Amazing Spider-Man, for the longest time.
Spidey's adventures are brought to life by Stan Lee and artist Steve Ditko.
Stan was scripting all this stuff, and Steve plotted most of it, and Stan dialogued it. Together it was something magical.
Steve Ditko's artwork had almost a Picasso feel to it. It was almost cubist, and if you look, compare it to other comic books of that time, no one's ever imitated him. It's a very unique look to it.
Steve Ditko pretty much created everything cool about Spider-Man. All of his major foes were created during Steve Ditko's run. Right on down the line, from the Green Goblin to the Vulture to Dr. Octopus and Sandman.
Everything about Spider-Man, from his costume to his alter ego Peter Parker, draws in readers, and comic book fans can't get enough.
Stan Lee really rocketed into fame for creating heroes that had flaws, that had a real life, that had a personality beyond the cape and cowl, beyond the spandex.
One of the things that made Peter Parker really so very successful is what my publisher objected to. It was all the problems.
He's Peter Parker first, and it's kind of Spider-Man second. He's a younger character, so who's got real-world problems. He lives alone with his aunt, and he goes to high school, and he's got a girlfriend, and he tries to balance all these real-world things that kids and society just relate to.
The idea of a superhero with everyday problems, as revolutionary today as it was when he came up with it. I mean, it's so mundane in a way, but it totally revolutionized the comic book industry.
He forever kind of changed the way we look at heroes.
At the heart of the Spider-Man mythos is a key lesson.
With great power comes great responsibility. Really think about that. You could actually live by that code, and only that code, with no religion in your life, and live a very fulfilling life. It's an amazing idea.
The Spider-Man phenomenon just keeps growing.
At some point, they decided, this guy's a mark of quality. We gotta do something more with him.
And soon, the name Peter Parker will become more well-known than Marvel ever expected. After more than 40 years of crime fighting, Spider-Man has become a household name. Comic book artists such as Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson gain notoriety from their work on the Spider-Man comics. The friendly neighborhood web-slinger spawns numerous comics and 2 blockbuster films.
Oh, you didn't have to be a genius to realize how successful Spider-Man was. Well, the book sold like there was no tomorrow.
Soon after the turn of the new century, Marvel launches Ultimate Spider-Man, a modern retelling of the classic hero.
With the Ultimate books, we're able to just start over from scratch. It's about our world and our times, but still about the classic magic of a Marvel comic.
It was exciting to take the Ultimate approach to the character, where he's younger and he's dealing with kind of different things.
Peter Parker in the Ultimate series is a web designer, not a photographer. He deals with a lot of current day issues. When the comic was first conceived by Stan Lee in the early 60s, there are a lot of issues that might not resonate as well with teens today. So we've actually taken the storylines from the Ultimate comic book series, which is really updated to modern day.
Ultimate Spider-Man becomes a smash hit for Marvel. And it soon catches the attention of Activision.
We looked at what was going on in comic books today and really
Oh! Ah!